Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. As always, a lot of stuff planned for you today. And today is kind of like a continuation, not really of like we're going to go over everything that we went over yesterday, but it's like more stuff comes out with two big stories that we had yesterday. We'll start off with Les Miles has been let go by Kansas. If you're a Kansas fan, the way that he was 3-18 in his time at Kansas, okay, including one game that they won in Big 12 play. If you wake up this morning and you're a Kansas football fan, which I don't know how many Kansas football fans there are, okay, but if you're a Kansas football fan, you wake up and you see this. I mean, this makes you happy. You're dancing around, clapping your hands. We've gotten rid of Les Miles. We're 3-18 in his time that he's here. And we've gotten rid of this guy. Now, of course, they got rid of him on the basis of what happened down at LSU. And the Kansas athletic director, this was the weird part for me, is that they let him go because of the stuff that happened in 2013. But here's the statement from the athletic director, Jeff Long. Quote, "I'm extremely disappointed for our university, fans, and everyone involved with our football program. There's a lot of young talent on this football team, and I have no doubt we'll identify the right individual to lead this program. We will begin the search for a new head coach immediately with an outside firm to assist in this process. We need to win football games, and that's exactly what we're going to do." So think about this for just a second. Your university hired someone that now has come out. It's come out that another university has found that they did things on a front where it makes them seem like they're a creepy old man. By the way, he was fired on National Women's Day. So there's that too. But that's what happened with all of this. And that's the statement you give out. Mr. Jeff Long, how about this? Why don't you, I tell you what, why don't you, you can email me or follow me at Rob Sounds Good. And I will be the guy that writes your statements for you. Now, I'm not the guy that can write the absolute best statements in the world. I admit that. But I could have done a heck of a lot better than this. How about, say, the University of Kansas is upset by the accusation, or is upset by the report of what happened with Les Miles. We've relieved him of his coaching duties. We are sorry to the victims of what happened with Les Miles. And we look forward to a new horizon with a new coach. Let's not talk about we have a young team and we need to win football games, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Really, sir? Really? That's what you're going to come at me with today? Hey, we're just going to, I mean, what a mess, man. By the way, shout out to everybody that one of the things that was tweeted out last night that made me laugh really hard. This broke at 10 o'clock last night, by the way. They needed 3 days to figure this out, and then they put it out at 10 o'clock at night. And here's the other interesting part. Someone immediately tweeted out, hey, Jeremy Pruitt needs a job. They want to try to get Jeremy Pruitt a job. Get your McDonald's bags and head to Kansas there, Jeremy Pruitt. They would McLovin it. I'm guarantee you on that. But according to the athletic director, they've got a young team. They need to win games. Who knows? Oh, man. And it gets more and more interesting the more and more you read into this stuff. So Mike DeBoard, who was hired last month as the new offensive coordinator, will serve as the program's acting head coach until an interim coach is determined. Look, if Mike DeBoard agreed to coach there at Kansas, you should just go ahead and make him the head coach. Seriously. Does anybody really want to go to Kansas to coach? I mean, Les Miles was run out of LSU. They were done with him. He's over there eating grass on the sideline and everything else. They were done. If you got somebody that really wants to be there in Mike DeBoard, who I know nothing about, let him be the head coach. Now, here's the other end of it too. I think a lot of this statement that came from Jeff Long, probably the most insensitive athletic director you'll find on the planet, he probably had to jump through legal hoops, basically, because Les Miles' attorney was like, Now the question is that will Les Miles coach again, or is he going to be forced into retirement? And by the way, Kansas is also facing some basketball stuff, which is the sport they care the most about. And that's going to kind of hit them in the face too. So being a fan of the old Rock Chalk Jayhawk is not exactly where you want to go right now. Anyway, that was going to be one of my questions today. Do you think Les Miles is going to be retired for good? He seems like he's the kind of guy, he's going to go coach somewhere else. And when you dangle that little thing there of, hey, I want a national title, maybe he'll end up somewhere else. And there's evaluation from different folks on this that says, hey, you know what? We have the whole thing of, he was trying to build that roster at Kansas. So there's that too. One other note involving LSU, Colby the lineman says online, Les Miles at Florida next year. He replaces Dan Mullen. Okay. At this point, I would laugh, but I would not be surprised. Not one stretch of the imagination would I be surprised. Something else that came out today, former LSU president and chancellor F. King Alexander wrote in a letter Monday that he regrets not taking stronger action when faced with allegations about Les Miles and how he had sexually harassed female students. So Alexander wrote that shortly after he became LSU's president in 2013, board members, a Taylor Portner attorney, LSU's general counsel, and he received the results of the sexual misconduct inquiry into Miles. Alexander, who's now the president of Oregon State, said the investigation into Miles began in 2012 before he took the post. He said, at the time, we were told by attorneys that there wasn't any evidence that could support termination. Though not substantiated to support termination, the results of the initial inquiry into Coach Miles were inconsistent with my and LSU's community values and should have been acted on further. Look, I'm at the point now where, and I think that the athletic directors need to think like this too. You've got someone that makes comments like Les Miles, who it was put out there that he said, there was one line that really stuck out on this. He wanted the university, or he wanted the football program to have a lot of representation by females that were, quote, blonde and had big boobs. That was the comment from Les Miles. That's what he wanted as far as when recruits and everything came on campus. So when you have that, and he's actually said that, that's the kind of thing that's not going to work in today's society. Now, I know that it happens. It's been happening forever. But with the way that things are now, especially in the social media age where you can go live in a matter of seconds from your iPhone, you can put this stuff out there, and it could be something that is not what you want from your university. So I can see where President Alexander wishes that he could have done something different then. But you know what, sir? You're just as responsible because you were there. You chose basically his word over the young ladies that were there at the school. Now, I understand there was the investigation and it didn't warrant termination, but the thing that bothers me about this the most in some areas is that if he loses games, he's gone. But if he's messing with the co-eds, we really don't know for sure. We don't really know for sure. That's kind of how it looks from there. Grover with a comment online. Appreciate him joining the show. Kansas trying to pull a try and get out of a buyout. I'm sure Les is all lawyered up now. The burden of proof is on Kansas. You're exactly right. They had the responsibility of vetting him, and all this was out in the open while Les was still at LSU. Not a new story. Les has a good case. I think that behind the scenes, Les Miles will get his money from Kansas. I really do. I think that's going to happen. But the question is, will he coach again? And you know what? If I'm Les Miles and none of this stuff happened, because he's categorically denied all of it and said none of that ever happened. Absolutely none of it happened. Then what I would do is I would call ESPN. I would get with whatever media contact that I had, and I would get on TV and say, you know what? Line these women up that said this. If I were Les Miles and I hadn't done anything, that's what I would do. So he hasn't done that yet. And, you know, the truth eventually comes out, but why hasn't he done something like that yet? You think that ESPN wouldn't put him on SportsCenter in the morning where he can have a national audience and point blank say, you know what? LSU lied. Kansas fired me without cause. Why not? Maybe he was doing a little something he wasn't supposed to do. Just from that perspective, because I know that I would be jumping at the bit. If I hadn't done anything, I would absolutely be shaming people that put out what I'm saying are lies about me. So maybe that says a little bit about Les Miles, that, or he's thinking, you know what? I'm 60-something years old. I can just retire. Who cares? It could be that too. So the Les Miles era ends in Kansas at a 3-18 start. Justin says Les Miles' college football career is over. He may not get another head football coach job ever again, or never again. You're right. We'll take your calls on this at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. You know, yesterday we talked about Coach Probst down at Valdosta. I hope I said that correctly. Some folks corrected me on that yesterday. It's amazing that I have a job speaking on the radio, and sometimes there are words that I just can't get out. But according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitutional, they say that Georgia's compliance officers are investigating the claims made by Coach Probst. So Probst made those comments yesterday about the program at Georgia, and I'm going to play you the quick comment here about the comments from Coach Smart, and then tell you exactly what the AJC says about the investigation.
Do you know what Curry's doing at Georgia right now? You know why he's taking that program the way he is? I think because he's a good recruiter. He is. But why do you think he's getting these kids and keeping kids in and all that stuff? Taking care of them. So he's got a guy named Hugh Nall, who lives in Albany. Hugh is the guy that sort of handles things. Okay, he's the handler. Okay, so Kirby's come down and met with the richest of the rich of South and West Georgia, not Southeast, not Macon, Southwest where he's from. Mm-hmm. He got the richest guy in Bangladesh. He got the two richest guys in Caldwell. He's got the rich guy over here in Valdosta. Anybody's in Georgia. Well, you know who he's got in Valdosta? Multi-millionaires now. Listen, do you know how much money they spend on a lawyer? They get money. Something like $90,000 to $100,000 a sign. I'm over $90,000 to $150,000 to sign. Like Chubbs, when Chubbs came back and Chubbs didn't go to the NFL draft, Mark Motley, it was $360,000 donations getting the Chubbs to stay in school. There's $180,000.
All right, so first of all, with that last statement there about Nick Chubb's returning to school, Chubb tweeted out earlier today, or it may have been yesterday, if I wanted more, if I had issues with money, I would have went to the pros. And he's exactly right. I think his first pro contract was worth like $4.5 million. Now, if it's $180,000 versus $4.5 million, and it's all about money, he would have never stepped foot back on the Georgia campus. And I think that that's something that we need to put out there as well. Also, the man that was talking there, of course, is Coach Probst, but the guy that was recording this was the former Valdosta Touchdown Club member, director, Michael Nub Nelson. It sounds like a gangster name. I've come to the conclusion that both of these guys are liars. We've got proof that Probst is a liar from several different things that he's put out there, from having a double life where he had, a wife, and then, he had another child out of wedlock with someone else and was completely living a different life over there. So I question his integrity on several different things. He's being investigated for paying his players now, but Valdosta High School has not fired him yet. Why is that? Why is that? Why is it that this guy's had a checkered past from before? If you're going to hire the guy, and I understand giving people another opportunity to redeem themselves, but if you are hiring this guy, you're going to have the comment with him beforehand. Like my grandpa used to say to me when we'd walk into the store, he'd give me my walking papers. Look, boy, I'm going to take you into the store, but we're not going to do anything stupid. If you do anything stupid, I'm going to box you in the head, okay? Or whatever. You should have that kind of conversation with this coach. Look, we're going to give you an opportunity to revitalize your career here at Valdosta High School. We understand that you're a great coach, but understand if one thing comes out about you that doesn't really go with what we're trying to do here as far as a positive message to the young men and the building of a football program, you are fired. So Valdosta High School needs to figure that out quickly. I'm sure there's tons of young coaches that would like to go to and work at Valdosta High School and could probably help them out a lot more without getting some bad publicity in the press. But according to the AJC, Michael Nub Nelson said, I had the clips made. I guess that's how it got out. I only gave the audio file to two people, one who has access to Georgia and one who has access to Alabama. Nelson said he's already been interviewed by compliance officials at Georgia. They called and asked me a bunch of questions. They asked me not to discuss it. So I don't want to say too much. Really? First of all, I don't think that the people at Georgia, their compliance people, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't talk about this. I don't know. I'm not buying that he's the absolute best person either. So, but Georgia's compliance folks are supposedly looking into this. Oh man, what a mess. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. If you want to sound off on all of that, is LSU more at fault with the Les Miles stuff? Should more happen there? They had to sit in yesterday. Talk about that. Will he coach again? All that and a lot more. Some tournament talk here in a moment on the rundown with Rob right here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Alan, for once I agree with you. And are you mocking me for the way I said Constitution? Okay, Alan. I had a stroke I got hit in the head and I had a stroke it's almost 10 years ago now. And I was going down a water slide and hit my head on the top of the water slide. And I had a stroke and seizures and all that stuff. And I bit my tongue really bad, to the point where I had to learn to speak again. And sometimes words like Constitution are hard for me. I have a hard time with the word infraction as well. Infraction. Violation. I have to really stop and think about it. I was working in radio. I was worried that I would never get another radio job. So to fix that, luckily, I have to shout out to my one of my mentors here, LJ Smith, who's our director of programming here. He kept me on here even though I couldn't speak. Imagine that. You're paying a guy that is supposed to be on the radio, but he's not. So they paid me to basically sit around here and do things. It was kind of funny. But I read to myself in corners for a while. Hold on, let me take this call here. Right down with Rob, what's up?
Wear a mask, watch your distance, and make a big difference now.
Learn more about vaccines at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Recently,
anyway, yeah, that's kind of how that worked out. I had to read to myself in a corner for almost a year before I was able to speak coherently enough to get back on the air. Little things. Welcome back to the Rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Out to the phones we go. Alan, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Good, man. What you got for the show today?
Well, I've been listening to a lot of comments, including yours that you just made about this coach at Valdosta not necessarily being the most reliable of sources and people digging into his past. But I find it really hypocritical that none of these things were brought up when the same exact allegations were made against the University of Miami with Nevin Shapiro, considering he was a convicted Ponzi schemer, and everybody knew about his past. It was all just throw the death penalty in Miami.
Do you think that there's because, and this is just a theory of mine, I think there's a section of people that cover sports that are fanboys, and they're willing to look completely the other way when it comes to their team. I think that happens a good bit. Or with that stuff down there, I mean, there may have been pressure from him. You never know. He may have said, "Hey, if you report this, then bad things are going to happen to you." You never know.
Yeah, and I mean, if it involves Alabama, you know, if you're going after Nick Saban and his recruiting practices, that's a mountain to tackle right there.
I get that. I just, the thing that gets me with this coach is that I wanted to put out there the stuff that had happened to him beforehand, and the fact that, I mean, it's really interesting to me that he's being investigated for paying his players now, and yet he's talking about other people paying their players. It's like he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. Does that make sense?
Oh, completely. And I'm not saying that just because, you know, it's coming from an unreliable source that it's true or not true. And I said the same thing, you know, back then when everything came out with Miami. My point is kind of the initial reaction you're getting out of people. It's much different with certain schools versus other schools. You see what I'm saying?
Do you think that people are just more out to get Nick Saban because he punches everybody in the face, basically, with his team, and he's the cream of the crop? You think that may have a little bit more to do with it?
I think Nick Saban has this air about him where he's just running this completely squeaky clean program. Listen, I'm coming from the perspective, I believe there's probably not a D1 program that there aren't players getting some kind of compensation from somewhere.
Completely agree with you.
But like I said, to me, and granted, this is coming from the perspective of a Miami fan, just the complete dismissal that seems to come from a lot of people versus the complete condemnation of a team like Miami is kind of what bothers me.
Yeah, I can understand that. But, yeah, that's a very good point you made, man. It seems like we've had stuff like this. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What were you saying? Go ahead.
I was just saying the only other thing I wanted to comment on was I believe Les Miles is going to get another job because, I mean, off the top of my head, there's maybe 5 or 6 coaches still coaching in college football that can say they've won a national title, and Les Miles is one of them. And I get the point that you made earlier about, you know, how things are in society today. I could honestly give a crap less about that, you know, how other people view things in society.
Right.
To me, this is kind of part of the problem today is this whole guilty until proven innocent mentality.
Right. And I agree with you on that. But if I were Les Miles and all of this was not true, I would be on ESPN or in front of whoever saying this is all lies. And that's exactly what I would be doing. But
I would too, but I'm sure he's probably got a PR person saying the exact opposite in his ear.
well, then I would fire my PR person because I would defend my name to everyone else, because now the only thing people are going to remember is Les Miles tried to feel up co-eds, was kissing co-eds and everything else according to that investigation. We only have that one side, so that's the only side that we can go with, because somebody's in his ear saying, hey, you should shut your mouth. And that's just as bad in my opinion.
And I completely agree with you there. And I also think in this day and age, a lot of this stuff gets blown out of proportion. Just the way you tend to see these things go, there's probably a handful of what some people may consider inappropriate comments. But I mean, that's really a subjective thing, what's
right.
appropriate, what's inappropriate. So, like I said, I agree with you. I think he should. I'm sure ESPN would put him on Sports Center or First Take or whatever.
He can pick his spot right now.
Yeah, and I would do it.
Yep. If there's nothing there. But I would point blank, where are these women at? You want to throw rocks at me? Here you go. Have at it. I'd love to see it. That's the way that things should be handled. If you've done nothing, you have nothing to hide, call them out. Who did I have in my condo that didn't want to be there? Who is it? I have no clue who it is. That's the statement that he's put out from before. If nothing happened, that's the way you got to go, man.
I completely agree with you. I think it's just going to take to kind of reverse some of this, not trying to go into a deep dive on society, but to try and reverse some of that. You need somebody to do exactly that and disprove the if they are baseless allegations against them.
Good point, man. Hey, thanks for calling the show today, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. You have a good one.
All right, there you go. Appreciate the call there. Look, and I want to make sure that I put this out there too. I'm not saying that the women aren't telling the truth. I'm just saying I've got two people that have different stories. You have this set of young ladies that were down at LSU that said that the following things happened. You have that investigative report that was put out by LSU where the former president says they wish they could have done more about it. We've got one statement from Les Miles who said point blank, I didn't do any of these things. Well, let's put these two people together and go after it and figure out who's telling the truth and who's not. That's all that we want. I'm not defending Les Miles either by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not trying to diminish what happened to the young ladies that were down there. If any of this happened, then Les Miles deserves to get kicked to the curb. But when you just have a statement from Les Miles, oh no, that didn't happen. Well, you know what? If it didn't happen, then come out and stand behind what you said. This isn't rocket science, ladies and gentlemen. Come out and say, you know what? Everything that they said is absolutely not true. All I want to do is develop young men and into better football players and better people. If you're being honest about it and that's all that happened, you shouldn't have any problem getting out in front of everybody else and saying that. Not just an 8-word statement that come from somebody that, is an attorney that wants to make sure that you don't get sued. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. As the caller said, yeah, he's won a national title. Maybe he'll coach somewhere else. I don't know if you can go any lower than Kansas, though. Kansas is a gong show. I mean, wow. He's 3-18 in his time there. One conference game is all they won under Les Miles. So, I mean, they were 0-2 against the Sun Belt. Coastal Carolina beat them twice in their own building up there twice. I remember watching that game this year, and Coastal Carolina looked like the bigger, better football team. I mean, they looked like they had better athletes, which, you normally don't say that when you have a Big 12 team. But Coastal Carolina looked like they were bigger, and that's something that you have to put on Les Miles too. Hey, you didn't put out big enough players, et cetera. And I know he was only there a short amount of time. I get that. But to get shamed by a team from the Sun Belt twice in your own building, 2 years in a row, not necessarily what you want. All right, we'll take calls on that this afternoon at 803-978-1832. Should LSU be put on the hook more for this? There's some folks out there that think that things should happen to the football program now for stuff that happened 8 years ago. The students down there did a sit-in. They're not happy with what's going on. So we can talk about that this afternoon. I've also got in my hands my bracket update here about who I think is going to make the NCAA tournament. So we'll get into that and a lot more in just a moment. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Tom, that's a good point, man. I got to bring that up, buddy. Thank you for that. I think that I think we're getting to a point now where everything's going to be. I think once we get to June, it's going to be like a complete reset button. We're going to have full stadiums everywhere. I think that's kind of the way things are going to be. So, yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Tom. I'm trying to find the Pittsburgh game today. Let's see her. Got to figure out who Clemson's playing next, right? Is that game even on TV? I don't even know. Does anybody care about the ACC tournament today? I mean, the games that you have today. By the way, Duke's playing in the ACC tournament today before Clemson. That means the world is messed up. So there's that.
Cowboys broke the bank on their quarterback with a 4-year, $160 million deal. I'm Scott Davidson.
Do you suffer from lead foot or goosebumps appear for no reason? Stop living with uninspired performance. Visit mbusa.com/AMG and find out if a Mercedes-AMG Coupe, sedan, or SUV is right for you. Mercedes-AMG, driving performance.
Broadcasting from the TrueCar.com studios. This is Columbia's Fox Sports Radio 1400.
Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. We're taking calls today about Les Miles. Is he going to get another coaching job? You can call up with that, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call. If you'd like to join us today here on the Rundown. Also, the stuff with Coach Probst down at Valdosta State. Yeah, there's that too. By the way, I've got one other thing that I wanted to get out on the football front before we do some basketball talk here. The ACC tournament is underway, by the way, and I'm going to get you an update on the scores in just a moment. But Darion Kendrick, according to 247 Sports, is the number one cornerback that's out there as far as the number one cornerback in the transfer portal. And the interesting thing with this was they have him set up where he could possibly go to like one of three teams or one of three teams in the SEC East. But this report written up by Chris Hummer yesterday, which I didn't get to because we're talking about Coach Probst, but they talk about him possibly going to Georgia or maybe Florida. I'll tell you what, if he goes to Georgia, he could be playing against his former team the first week of the season. You talk about some as the world turns type stuff, man. That's some very interesting stuff there, man. That's a very interesting story there. Would he go to Georgia? Would he go to Florida? This is from Hummer's piece here in 247 Sports. The Bulldogs have a ready-to-compete roster, but lost all three of their 2020 starting quarterbacks to the NFL draft or transfer portal. Kendrick could step in right away and help solidify that position room, allowing talented but younger players like Jalen Kimber, Keely Ringo, and Nyland Green to compete for a starting role. So there's definitely that. Florida already has an all-SEC candidate quarterback in Kaiir Elam. but the rest of the room is young. Here's some of the other teams that may be in the mix for Kendrick's services for this year. Alabama, okay, Texas, TCU, and South Carolina is another school that's that 247 Sports has heard has had some preliminary contact with Kendrick on or his camp, but the Gamecocks are in a tough position scholarship-wise and can't take another initial counter until August. Where's he going to end up? The number one cornerback in the transfer portal. He's going to go somewhere. 247 Sports lists those schools there. I tell you what, if he ends up at Georgia, man, there's already a lot of bitterness in that rivalry there with Clemson playing in that first game. And it's a top 4 matchup at the beginning of the season. And you've got a guy that was a projected first round pick that jumps teams and ends up playing for the Georgia team against his former team. I mean, you couldn't write that up in a soap opera, man. You really couldn't. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. I'm not sure how that's gonna happen there, but wherever he goes, I think he'll start immediately. I really think that he will start immediately. By the way, David had a great comment up top here. I want to go ahead and give him credit for this. If the NCAA wants to punish LSU for Miles, they can force the university to fire Ed O and hire Bo Pelini. LSU fans are still upset about Bo Pelini, which if you looked at the LSU defense last year, I would be upset too. Remember, the old Pirate went in there and beat you senseless. Alan with a great comment. Who's paying Stetson Bennett to start for UGA? Please stop. Good point, sir. Good point. Oh, the Stetson Bennett stuff is outstanding. Tom, of course, speaking to Alan on here, says Muschamp will kill your dreams. So as long as he's on your payroll, be prepared for disappointment. A lot of hatred for Will Muschamp too. All right, so where do you think Darion Kendrick's going to go? We'll have that. We'll take calls on that at 803-978-1832. Will Les Miles get another coaching job? There's that. I don't think he's going to coach anywhere else. I think he's done. I wish he would come out, though. If none of this was true, why not? Why not go after it and say, you know what? I don't agree with any of this. Maybe there's something there. I'm not sure. By the way, quick ACC note here as their tournament is underway. With 4 minutes to go in the second half, it's a tie ball game between Miami and Pittsburgh. Why is that important to you? If you're a Clemson fan, then you've got you play the winner of that game tomorrow. Out to the phones we go. And welcome into the Rundown. Good afternoon.
How's it going, Rob?
What's going on, buddy?
Not a whole bunch. It's your boy David down in Louisiana.
David, what are you doing, my friend?
Well, you wanted to talk about Les Miles, and who's better qualified to talk about him than me?
I know, right? You probably have a Les Miles tube top, don't you?
Maybe at one point in time I did.
Maybe at one point in time. All right, you're on the radio. Don't curse. What do you got for the program, man?
So, as an LSU fan, I was firmly aboard the Les Miles train all the way up until the point where they actually fired him. When he lost the Auburn game in 2016, that was the first time I thought to myself as an LSU fan that it was probably time to move on, and lo and behold, that's when they did.
Okay.
Having said that, he sits out of coaching for what, three and a half years. He gets hired at Kansas, and what did he win? 3 games?
Three games, 1 game out of conference and was, or 1 game in conference and was 0-2 against the Sun Belt.
So, on what planet would anyone consider hiring this guy in the future? The reason he was fired from LSU was a failure to evolve, and I understand he had a relationship with Long over at Kansas from their Michigan days,
right?
But there was no body of work to suggest that he deserved anything going forward anyway. I'm surprised they didn't fire him after the second season. He didn't win a game last year.
Yeah, that's true too. And
this was a guy that I absolutely loved. He was always a class act. Even after he was let go from LSU, he stayed in Baton Rouge. Anytime he did interviews, he was always in the suit with his purple tie. When LSU won his last national championship, he was the first person to get on Twitter and congratulate the team. All these things that show that, I mean, of course, all of this came before all of this negative press came to light where he's involved in these unscrupulous things with
being
emails.
down there and being around that program. Were you buying any of this? I mean, did you believe Les Miles when he said, "Hey, I didn't do any of that"? I mean, or is this something that you think may have been happening behind the scenes?
I mean, he's admitted as much as that he quote unquote mentored female students at the university. What all that entails, I don't know. He has denied being in sexual relationships with any of them, but at the same time, there were several instances where he was reported for being inappropriate. So, you know the saying, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, I can understand that. And he could alleviate a lot of this if he would just come out and say, hey, I didn't do this. And by the way, get on TV. But I'm talking about getting on TV and doing it. I mean,
he's not going to do that.
But he should. If you didn't do anything, come out on TV and do it. Defend your name, for goodness sake.
It's all going to go through legal counsel and all of that stuff.
Well, that's the problem now, because we only can hear one side of the story, and everybody else is afraid to get sued.
Exactly.
And that's terrible.
And that's part of the reason why he's no longer the coach at Kansas, is because Kansas took one look at this and said, "Yeah, we don't want any part of this."
Well, that's a good point, man. And I think, but do you think he'll coach somewhere else? I mean,
not at all.
Not at all. You think he's completely done?
Yeah, I mean, the guy won 2 games in 2 seasons at his new program after being shown the door at his previous program for not being able to evolve with his offensive philosophy to continue to compete in the conference he was in. And everybody would see the Big 12, and well, most people would see the Big 12 as a step down in competition from the SEC West.
Well, I think that a lot of the SEC West, they always cut their own throat over there. So yeah, you're right about that.
When he was the coach at LSU, I used to tell people all the time, if the measuring stick for Les Miles is Nick Saban, well, that's an unfair measuring stick, because Nick Saban is better than everyone.
That's true.
But you have to come up with a better measuring stick. And at the time, he wasn't doing terrible. He did eventually get down to where he was only winning like 8 games a season. But for the first 10 years he was there, he was at like 10 games a season. You know, right. Most people would give anything to have that kind of production. Nebraska fired Bo Pelini, who averaged 9 wins a season, and hired Mike Riley from Oregon State, who was terrible at Oregon State. But they didn't like Bo Pelini in Nebraska because he wasn't media savvy. And then they end up firing Mike Riley within 3 years, and then they hire Scott Frost. And what's he done? Nobody has achieved what Bo Pelini did at Nebraska since Bo Pelini left. So we jump on these trains where we're like, oh, we think we deserve so much better than what we're getting, when in actuality, what you're getting isn't bad.
Good point, man. Good point. Hey, I appreciate the perspective from someone from that follows LSU, man. Thanks for joining the show today, buddy.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, there you go. David with a good point there. Well, we shall see what happens there. I think he's going to get paid. Kansas will pay that money. That's going to happen. That will definitely happen. We'll give you an update on the ACC tournament. Getting down to the bones time here for this matchup to see who plays Clemson tomorrow. We'll talk about that when we come back. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Man, y'all over there drinking some stuff, man. Y'all, I'm trying to slim down. I've been going to the gym and doing my DDP yoga and all that, and I've been trying to cut back on my liquor intake. I got some Town Branch bourbon up on my in my liquor cabinet at home. It's like I'm watching TV at night and it's just calling me. Come get some of this goodness. Yeah, that's about where I'm at. Instead, I'm drinking Crystal Light that someone says looks like pee. Yeah. My life sucks right now. I broke my toe too. So I'm coming to work with I'm wearing just a sock on my one foot and no shoe. It's insane. Hey, I appreciate you guys stopping in, man. You guys, we're building kind of a little community here. It's really great of you guys to join us for our little hour radio program here, especially you folks on YouTube. As always, I'm appreciative of Jackpot for letting me stream this show over there. Give me a little bit of an audience over there. You guys rock. I appreciate it as always.
Fox Sports Radio 1400. Online at foxsportsradio1400.com. On your phone with the iHeartRadio app.
I know. Oh, no problem, Slim Shady. You call whenever you want, man. The Dr. Pepper that I drink with it does, though. Welcome back to the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Final segment of the show today. Quick look at the ACC tournament. Opening game of the tournament up in Greensboro. 66 all. The 13 seed Miami, the 12 seed Pittsburgh. Miami comes in at 8-16 on the season. Pitt comes in at 10-11. Two not very good basketball teams as I look above my head here. As Miami has a 2-point lead with 2 minutes to go. The winner of that game will play Clemson tomorrow. So there's that. 803-978-1832. I was telling the folks in the chat room that I broke my pinky toe over the weekend doing some stuff in my yard. So I'm having to hobble around work. I can't really put a shoe on my foot. So I'm just running around with a sock on my foot right now. And SEC Dog, once again, with the comment of the day, one shoe, did Marco Wilson get a hold of you? Florida fans not happy with that comment. I'm absolutely sure of. With that, that's the top of the line comment there. All right, so I wanted to give you my my NCAA tournament projections right now. My last four teams that are in my opinion, I like Xavier, I like Syracuse, and I like Ole Miss. My first four out, I'm going to go with VCU, Boise State, Drake, and possibly Utah State. So there you go. That's my projections for when I was doing my little bracket put together last night. Winthrop is going to be, I think they're going to be either a 13 or 14 seed. We'll see where they end up. But the Eagles, 23-1 on the season. I'm not saying they're going to be a team that can do damage in the tournament, but you better not overlook them because they are a very senior-laden team. Lost one game on the year as they rolled through the Big South. So there's that matchup there. I think that they're going to end up as the 13 seed, and they will probably end up playing a team like Purdue, or maybe end up if they want to have some fun there, they could make Clemson a 5 seed and make Winthrop a 12 seed, and then have that matchup, and it will be like the matchup for the Palmetto State. I don't think Clemson's going to finish as high as a 5 seed, although watching this game above me here with these two teams, Miami and Pittsburgh are awful. John Larinaga, the coach Larinaga from the Miami, I think he may be on his way out if he's still over there on the bench. Miami's just not very good this year. And then Pitt, of course, they lost their best player, so we'll see how that works out for them. I think my number 1 seed overall is Gonzaga. My number 2 seed is probably going to be Baylor. And then I like Illinois and Michigan. All right, out to the phones we go. 803-978-1832. Oh, call us back. I think I hung up on you by accident. Anyway, 803-978-1832. And I like Illinois and Michigan there as my other 2 seeds. You know what? I think a lot of the tournament this year, though, you know how teams kind of talk about, hey, we're getting slated here because we don't get to play close to where we're from, etc. None of that's going to matter because everything's in Indiana. So I don't think we're going to have a lot of that this year. I do think there's going to be some teams that can cry about being snubbed. Ole Miss, in my opinion, has the capability to be a pretty good team. But if they don't win that matchup against South Carolina on Thursday night, their chances of making the tournament are 0. So there's that too. But we'll see how that works out. And I mean, South Carolina, they're playing for pride right now. They've won 6 games on the season. Can they bounce off the mat? Would anybody be shocked if Frank Martin rallied the troops there and they won a couple games in the SEC tournament? I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be at all. By the way, one of South Carolina's players was A.J. Lawson was named all SEC second team today. So you've got an all SEC second teamer on your team, but you've only won 6 games. Interesting when you really stop and look at it from that perspective. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Tom says, hey, man, we can get God at any time, Rob. Good point, sir. And out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Good afternoon. I don't know if it was mine or your end, but the phone was like doing crazy stuff. But anyway.
What you got for the show today?
You were talking about Darion Kendrick.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Clemson fan. I want to point that out right off the get-go.
Okay.
And I hate losing him the way things went down. Just kind of felt it coming.
Right.
But to be quite honest with you, I think the kid ought to go to South Carolina. To be quite honest with you.
No, why would he want to go there over, say, going to Georgia and possibly being able to compete for a national title?
Because he's the kind of player, if he went to South Carolina, he'd be the best player at 4 different positions.
And
he'd
I
be
get
the best
that, but...
he would be the best cornerback. He would be the best safety, the best wide receiver, or the best quarterback on the team, no doubt. If you've ever watched him in high school, you'd have known that he's one of those few players that can make a average offensive line look pretty good because he is that mobile and that quick or whatever. But, he's won a national championship at Clemson. Right. So I don't know if that's the huge issue on his list. I think the huge issue is to go out and show out what he can do so he can go to the next level. But have a good day.
Hey, man, appreciate it. There you go with that. And, of course, he's talking about the report from Chris Hummel from 247 Sports that says that Joyner may end up going to one of 3 SEC East teams. He lists Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. And South Carolina makes sense. I get that. But I think that, and maybe it's just the way that I'm wired, I don't want to go anywhere unless I know that I have the possibility that, first of all, that I'm going to be able to play, which I think he would play at Georgia. They lost a bunch of guys to the NFL draft. They also lost the guys to the transfer portal. Tom said, did that guy just say best quarterback? Because that's incorrect. Yeah, well, Kendrick could take snaps at quarterback. I think he could. I think he'd start at wide receiver for South Carolina, and I think he'd start at defensive back. Definitely those 2 spots for absolute sure. So I just don't know if South Carolina, I think they have 1 scholarship left, if I remember correctly. But do you want a guy that's just going to be there 1 year? I mean, Shane Beamer may not be thinking that way. I don't know. I'm not trying to speak for Coach Beamer. But do you really want one guy for 1 year? If you're trying to build a base, that's for the next couple of seasons, maybe that's a good idea. We shall see. We shall see. He's going to end up somewhere. I think Georgia would probably be the best fit. Then we'll have Darion Kendrick week, the week before that game there. All right, don't forget Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next. He is, of course, the czar of Clemson Sports.
Stop looking at me, Swan!
Follow him on Twitter. He's at Clemson Sports. You can also check out his website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. I am on FoxSportsRadio1400.com. Check out my blog there. Teddy Hefner's on in the morning from 9 to noon. This show will be podcasted for you. You can download it anywhere you get your favorite podcast. Check it out there. Tomorrow, we'll talk more of the ACC tournament. Miami looks like they're pulling away from Pitt. They got about up 5 with 27 seconds to go. We'll be halfway through the Clemson game tomorrow when we come on the air. We'll talk with you then. This is The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Good point, Tom. Hey, I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you guys for spending some time with me today. You guys have a great afternoon, all right?